Welcome back to Lumps of Life. My name is Jared Lumsden, and today I have a very special guest joining me, speaker on autism, umpire, all around sports person, Daniel Durany. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Jared.
So, we had kind of connected through my podcast with April, speaking on autism and her podcast and her experience. And we connected through that. And I obviously am kind of learning this in real time. So it's interesting to explore kind of how other people's brains operate and how you see the world and your experience through it. So, kind of jumping right into your life with this, what were kind of the early struggles with you in your childhood that kind of led you into this world?
Some of the biggest struggles that I saw was I struggled with developing relationships with peers my own age. I developed them well, much older, much younger, but not my own age. And that's something I struggled with immensely. I struggled
Okay.
academically with reading and writing, but my biggest struggle was developing relationships with people.
What were kind of some of the biggest things that you realized, I guess now looking back at it, that were things you didn't quite understand were part of that?
I struggled reading nonverbal cues. I still sometimes struggle with that. I struggled with understanding humor. I took things very literal and it can be a little bit rigid sometimes. And that was some of the struggles I had in my childhood.
Okay. And it's so interesting because again, this is stuff that I'm kind of learning in real time. And I've always been the same way. I, I've never really like I don't know, taken those social cues. I feel like it was more with girls. I struggled more than anything of like having that. Like I was just always very blunt. So my assumption was no one liked me, no one wanted to talk to me. So I just always kind of kept my head down and did my thing. I had no idea that that was like part of that. And I, there was a multitude of other like little pieces of that puzzle, with like the reading and writing. What were like the biggest takeaways there that kind of led to learning about your autism?
With reading and writing, I struggled with uncomprehension and reading and understanding the big picture of things. I got details all right, but the big picture of things. Writing was difficult because you have to get the reader excited to read your writing, and it was hard to write complete sentences consistently to get it to where you get a story that's flowing and exciting and captivating. That was my problem.
Okay. Because I feel like I don't know if this kind of correlates with you at all, but for me, whenever I would start, I went through a spurt where I was trying to write out this journey that I've been on, whether it be my weight loss, things that I was learning in my marriage, whatever it was. I sat down with my notepad and I tried to like actually sit and structurally write. I tried to figure it out, make it, and then I realized I cannot do that. I have to just write like my thoughts are. I can't worry about spelling, punctuation, the structuring of it. I just kind of have to put my thoughts down and let it, and then it flows. I can write for extended periods of time whenever I do it that way. And I'm kind of the same way with podcast. If I try to sit and figure out what it's going to be, I bullet point it, I can't. My brain just does not want to do it. It's like it comes out very, yeah, structured, rigid. It does not flow the same way. But I realized that with my writing, with reading, I would just like venture off into my own story. I feel like where I'd be in the midst of reading something and I would still be reading it, but my brain would be on to something completely different. And then I'd check back in like 2 pages down and I'm like, what? I have no idea what I was even reading. So then I have to go back and restart again. And it's like, what am I doing? Like, how did I just go through 2 pages of a book on autopilot? But I was thinking about whatever in the world popped in my brain that I don't, it's that squirrel mentality of whatever popped up and caught my attention. And then my brain went down that rabbit hole. So I was curious if that was kind of similar with things that you ran into with your reading and writing as a child.
When it came to writing, I had good thoughts. My problem is sometimes I miss a verb or an adjective, or I miss a word that throws the whole sentence off. So my mind goes faster than what I put down on paper.
Yeah.
I almost have to talk to text to make good, clear sense of what I'm writing.
So I had to start plugging mine in to AI, and I'd go, okay, can you at least structure this? I want to keep all of the verbiage the same. I want to keep everything the same, but can you at least structure this and make it flow so it does not seem like a crazy person's incoherent ramblings? And it's not just because I don't pay attention to anything when I start writing. It's just whatever in the world is in my brain at that moment, and I let it kind of flow out. And I had to learn with my podcast that I can do that, but I have to dial it back just a hair, because if not, I'll just keep going. My brain will just start talking, and I have to like catch myself of, hey, you're going to do an hour podcast by yourself if you don't back off and start asking some questions. So there's had to be a little growth with doing this also. So kind of leading into how this has kind of played out in your life and how it turned into you speaking on autism. It looks like you've also created a few groups or a group that helps adults with autism. What kind of led you into wanting to speak on it and work with people?
I wanted to give back. I wanted to not see others have the same struggle as I did. I didn't want them to suffer. I didn't want them to go through the pain that I went through. That's why I'm giving back. I wanted to speak because I have a story to be that's told that's powerful and impacting, and that makes you give hope. That gives hope.
Absolutely. So, if you could go into what are a couple or one of those moments that like things have popped up for you that you've kind of persevered through, learned some lessons on, and have been able to pull yourself out of these things?
I'm not fond of this, but one of the things that I'm proud of is being able to get back from losing jobs. I've lost nearly 20 jobs.
Oh, okay.
I've lost jobs in so many different facets. It's not just social skills, it's not just one thing. So I've lost it in so many ways. I've lost it to where an employer didn't even tell me why they wanted to disclose. So I couldn't learn anything from it.
Yeah.
So I've learned how to get up and persevere and find a way to learn from each job I lost. I've learned how to be a better interviewer through the process because I get more opportunities to interview. I think you learn more through the process with these jobs losses and the history of employment and breakdown of employment. More you learn more than somebody who's held a job for 15 years in the same company. You learn more through the
100%.
process of how to write a good resume, to how to interview, how to write thank you letters, how to try to learn through the failures of sustaining employment. I've learned so much from this process. I've learned how to be a better be a better person budgeting money and having a backup plan each time I lost a job.
Yeah. At what point did you develop that? Because obviously, I assume the first couple times it happens, I think that's just human nature. Anytime those failures or hard times hit, you start kind of looking at yourself going, what am I doing wrong? When did that click for you to start looking at that and finding the lessons in these things rather than taking that like, oh, this is happening to me, and having that flip of, oh, this is happening for me. Here are the lessons. Here's the growth that I'm learning through this. When did that hit for you?
I got diagnosed at the age of 25. So after I got diagnosed with autism, I started learning through the process of the situation. Sometimes I learned that you could get unemployment if you get fired. I learned that you can have a budget to save up. I learned a lot through a gradual process since I've been diagnosed what employers are looking at. I've learned that it's more than just social skills. Yes,
Hmm.
social skills are important, but most of those companies are looking to see if you're a quick learner, to see if you could profit for them.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing I've learned through the whole process. It's made me a stronger person. I have an interview today. I'm just passed my certification test to be a special ed teacher in the school system.
Oh, cool.
So I have learned more about myself through this whole process than any other challenge probably I've ever gone through. Even dating relationships is right up
Yeah.
there. But when it comes to losing jobs, I've learned how to find, to sustain, and then the what to do when you lose one. The thing that colleges do not teach is they do not teach how to handle losing a job. There's never been a college to this day that says, I'm going to teach you how to handle losing a job.
Hmm. And then you had to kind of learn on your own with experience. I've become increasingly convinced throughout the journey that I've been on that everything happens for a reason, whether it's good, bad, and different. It always, for me, lined up, like you just said, with some sort of lesson, some sort of opportunity to learn, to grow. And I think in a lot of times these loops that I got into where like it felt like the same thing was happening over and over and over again, it was the same thing. As soon as I took a step back and started looking at them with the lessons, I started looking at, okay, what am I doing that I can learn from here? What did I do incorrectly? Every time it worked out in my favor, but you don't hold on to that weight of that, letting that loss of a job, letting that loss of a friendship weigh on you personally, and not
Mhm.
letting that weight stick with you and hold on to you and making that about like, oh, something's wrong with me. Well, no, that just probably wasn't the right thing for you. There's a reason that it didn't mesh up. There's a reason that it didn't work out. And the more I do that, the easier these things are to walk through, the easier these things are to get through, because you can just look at, okay, well, what was the thing there that caused this? Okay, what can I do differently next time? How can I not let that happen again? And for me, every time it's opened up a different world. It's opened up a different door. But I think, like you stated earlier, when you stick with the same job, you don't learn those lessons. You almost develop a fear with that. And there's a lot of world out there. There's a lot of life to be lived. And I think sometimes that gets us stuck doing the same things over and over again.
Absolutely. You learn more through the process. I learned how to handle losing a job and what to do when you lose it, when to start looking for the next job, when to start who to interact with, who to contact in those situations in terms of my friends and family. Um, it's made, as I say again, it's made me a stronger person. It's not something I'm proud of. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I've been a disappointment and failure. Sometimes I felt like the college prepare me for life into the job world.
See, I think it put you right where you needed to be. I look at all of those things like each of those job losses were a lesson for you to put you in the place that you're supposed to be. And maybe you're supposed to be a special education teacher. And that's where life has been like kind of molding you for that, where these job losses, these lessons, these things in life have put you in that position to have the ability to want to do those things. So I always like to look at them in that lens of like, okay, how did I like because I struggle with sometimes looking back at being 37 and going, oh, I wish that I would have figured some of this stuff out earlier. I wish I wouldn't have done this. And then I got into that world of going, oh, but that if I didn't do those things, I wouldn't have the mindset that I do right now. If I didn't do this one thing that I hated, that I am so embarrassed of, or that I feel terrible about, then it wouldn't have taught me this. It wouldn't have got me here. It wouldn't have led me into this thing. And the more I track those back, and it kind of pulls me off of that, and it makes you almost appreciate those things. Cause I started looking at, I forget where I read it or heard it, but learning that, hey, you can't control anything. You can't go back and make it any different. You can't go back and change your decisions. You can only do better today. You can look at what's in front of you and make that right choice today to do a little bit different. Because if you live back in those past mistakes or things and you look at them as, oh, I wish I would have done this, then for me, it drove me absolutely insane, where it was like, I wanted to fix all these things. And then I started looking into the future too much of, oh, I need to get here. I want to do this. And then I drove myself nuts in the opposite way. The more that I pull everything back and live presently and take everything day to day of like, okay, well, I can't change what happened yesterday. I screwed up. I did this. Fantastic. Let's make sure we do not do that today. And today's a new game. Let's start over and let's play today a little bit better. And it's kind of like baseball. You have a bad day, you go 0 for 3, you show up the next day, you can't go up to the plate with that mentality, or you're probably going to do the same thing again. But if you can let that stuff go and come out with a fresh mindset, you better things usually happen.
Absolutely. I learned to build moral victories along the way. And moral victories could be a reference. Maybe I gained a reference for the next job. Maybe it's a skill I learned on the job that I didn't know I had. Maybe it was something I liked in the job that I would like to see to get for the next job. Maybe it was something that I didn't enjoy and I know not to go into, or it's not a strength of mine. So there were so many good things I learned along the process.
Yeah. And it's just appreciating that journey rather than like you said earlier, almost having that embarrassment for yourself. It's just appreciating that journey of, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. And that was kind of the basis on me doing this podcast, was being able to the same thing, just try to help people by speaking out these lessons that I learned through going through these things and putting myself in these situations, and kind of being able to develop that awareness on the back end of it, to look at myself objectively and be able to kind of take a different lens with what I was doing and understand, like, hey, you're not always right. You're not going to be perfect. You can't be perfect. You got to back off and look at things this way, that way. And kind of flipping my perspective on life took, and I think I kind of always had that, but I started getting very, very selfish and tunnel vision, and I didn't always see things from that other lens. And you kind of let those, I don't know, those angry moments, those weird moments kind of hit on those egos and insecurities, and it tends to cause way more problems. So the more I try to take them as a positive, as a lesson, as a growth opportunity, it it kind of takes that bite away a little bit. So I kind of want to jump into transitioning when you were getting into officiating. How was that something you had always been interested in, or was that something that just kind of popped up in front of you?
I wanted to get into the sports industry. I wanted to be a sports researcher, sports statistician, work in media relations, but I kept falling short of the goal in getting that position, whether it be at the college level or at the professional level. I looked into broadcasting. I would research sports statistics on crazy things such as 300-yard passing games, 400-yard passing games, triple doubles in the NBA, double doubles as an example. And I wanted to be the best sports statistician ever. The problem was I couldn't make any money. I couldn't crack my foot in the door. So I had a friend of mine introduce me to refereeing. So I learned refereeing was fun. It was something. It it's it's kind of a sanctuary in a way. It's very peaceful for
Mm-hmm.
me. I started with volleyball, and then and then transition into basketball season, and then transition into softball. So I will be going into year 17 with volleyball. I will start year 17 in the fall with basketball. And I just finished year 14 in softball in high school level, year 12 in softball in college, and continuing on year 16 overall with softball with the
That's
select
awesome.
season. I've learned so much about myself. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better teammate, a better communicator. I've learned by officiating that it's helped me in my big, big boy jobs in the
Yeah.
past. I will tell you this. I think it's so important that people on the spectrum have a side hustle because that even when I was losing these jobs, I could always fall back to going into officiating, and I always had some income coming in and didn't have to rely on SSI or unemployment or my even my parents to munch on. So I had always some money coming in to help pay the bills for my family. There is a statistic that says 70% of teachers have a side hustle. There's a stat I read on Facebook that said 50% of Americans have a side hustle overall
Hmm.
because of how inflation has gone up with the housing market, groceries, everything else. But going back to officiating, I got introduced through a friend, and I've been able to learn how to network with other people, learn how to handle constructive criticism, learn how to build camaraderie with the umpires and referees that I work with, and it's it's been a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. So I love the fun portion of it, but my brain goes the opposite because I'm very curious at the beginning with how your brain operated. Obviously, people get a little bit aggressive at sporting events because I got to umpire. I believe I was 13, and I still to this day remember the verbal beating that I took from multiple people that I still remember to this day. And I can only imagine I've watched many of arguments with officials and referees and all, and you just see kind of the wildness of humans in that world. So I I kind of want to dive into what's one of your wildest stories of a person losing their mind.
I had one this year,
Oh,
and
perfect.
this is one in college. So I was doing a softball game, and in softball, you cannot lead off like you can in baseball. You have to wait until the pitch is released before you can leave the base. The runner left early. So it is a delayed dead ball in college. So you have to wait till the play develops and then make your call. So the runner was out. The coach came unglued, and I was shocked how she came unglued at that situation. She said, and pardon my language, she said, "Your call is chicken shit." So I warned her right there.
Yep.
So she said, "You don't belong on this field." Okay. I took it in stride. Then she took the Lord's name in vain. When she took the Lord's name in vain, I tossed her out of the game.
I love that. It, and I'm always interested in those because, like I said, the little bit that I got to officiate as a kid, and I did a little bit in softball, and but I think from that point on, it gave me like that little bit of PTSD of something, because people obviously get very, very passionate, and rightfully so. But then there's that level of the crazy that tends to come out with. I can assume if you did a lot of high school games, did you have to deal with a lot of parents behind the backstop as well?
Fortunately for us in the high school level, we have game administrators. So when there's fans that are acting a fool, we can go to a game administrator and tell them to tone it down. That helps a lot. I think there's been laws in place where if you attack officials, it's actually a felony in certain
Oh,
states.
fantastic.
So there's a shortage of officials in America in
Yeah,
every sport.
I can imagine why.
Even at the Division 1 level for softball, there's a shortage of officials, and that's the highest classification you can get at the college level, and there's still a shortage of it because people don't want to deal with the scrutiny. They
Mm-hmm.
don't want to deal with being talked down to or demeaned down to or disrespected. That's why officials get 80% of officials leave after 2 years
Mm-hmm.
of officiating because of the disrespect they receive from coaches and fans. If they paid officials more with all the scrutiny they go through, I think you would get more officials into it and be able to deal with the headache from
Yeah.
coaches and players. And
Well, and I also wish that like people would take a step back and understand what's happening. A lot of it is fear. A lot of it is, especially when it's you watching your kid. For me, when I lost my mind at sporting events with my kid, it was because of my own insecurities, my own ego, and that was making me act out of fear. I didn't want my kid to get left behind. I didn't want my kid to have a similar experience that I did, whatever it was in that moment. But then I would push too hard. It would make that anxiety creep in. It would make those emotions get really heavy and overwhelming. And then you kind of act out of character. You kind of, and then it's that like come down afterwards. But I wish people would take that step back, and it's just a game. They're going to do what they're going to do on the field regardless what you're doing. My demeanor was actually hurting my kid. My demeanor and what I was doing was making my kid nervous at the plate. It was making my kid not want to play baseball. And for me, that was super eye opening, and it made me step back. And the way I handle my kid in every sporting event now is so differently. I just get to sit back and I let him do what he's going to do. I can help with mindset things behind the scenes. I can practice with him with things when he wants to work and make it his thing, but I don't have to do it that way. I think so. Yep. Are
yeah,
we back? All right. I
yeah,
apologize.
somebody had called me. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Um, Keep going.
No, but yeah, just learning that with my kid and taking that back seat made me have a different approach to things. And it doesn't give me that same like fear. It's kind of that let my kid do his thing, and what happens happens. I can't control it. I can just control me and control how I'm handling myself, how I'm interacting with things. And you can not like things, you can not agree with things, but then you have to take that step back and realize we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. I've made more than enough mistakes in my life, and yelling at this person because I see something a little bit differently than them, like time and place. If I'm the coach and that's what I need to do to go out there and have a conversation to protect my team, then fantastic. If I'm sitting in the stands, no, not the time or place. That's not my job or my duty. I just get to sit and be a fan and watch my kid.
Now that I have a 6-year-old, I watch my son, and I and learning how to officiate myself. I've learned how to appreciate other officials at various levels, from
Mm-hmm.
t-ball to the professional level. So it is so important that we respect officials, that they're not there to cheat the game. They're there to be objective. They see what they call, they take what the information they've known and make the best judgment possible of it. I've learned how to be a better game manager through officiating, through handling conflict. That's probably the toughest part, I would say, if anybody that's going to, for a person on the autism spectrum, if they go into officiating, the toughest part will be the game management. Not knowing necessarily the rules or the mechanics, but game management of dealing with the emotions of coaches. What's helped me a lot is knowing the rules. The more
Mhm.
I know the rules and the more I know the mechanics of the game, the more I don't have to deal with coaches
Ye
getting in my way.
Well, that confidence is very important.
So that confidence helps a lot to where I don't have to deal with the coach. The more I know what I'm doing, the better off I am.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I know you were kind of pressed for time today, so I want to make sure you get out of here in plenty of time so you're not feeling rushed or pressed for your interview. So, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me and talking to me. Please promote anywhere people can find you and connect with you.
Thank you, Jared.
Is there anywhere people can like find you, connect with you?
They can find me through Facebook and LinkedIn, mostly Facebook. I have a documentary of a 90-second documentary where I became the first person with autism to umpire a Division 1 game.
Oh,
It was
cool.
on national TV through ESPN Plus. So find me on Facebook. I share a lot of things about autism on various facets, and I look forward to hearing from people.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much and good luck on your interview.
Thank you, Jared.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.